Welcome to TechMark Pod, where we innovate, discuss, and discover the dynamic intersection of technology and marketing. In each episode, we explore how businesses can leverage both to drive growth and innovation. Meet Alvin, our esteemed host for TechMark Pod. With over 15 years of experience as a renowned marketer, project manager, and software as a service architect, join us as we uncover the unique value proposition of integrating technology and marketing strategies, helping you stay ahead in this fast-paced digital world.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to TechMark Pod. Today's episode is sponsored by Symboti Digital. Symboti Digital is a digital marketing agency based in Midrand. Today, I'm joined by Bellise Jumbo.
Bari Alvin, how are you?
I'm all right, and you? I just love Jumbo, the greeting in Kenya. It's quite interesting, even though I don't know more words out of Swahili. I only know that one word. You know what I mean?
No, that's good enough. It'll be acceptable when you travel into the East. So you'll be safe.
Definitely. I want us to talk about marketing today. You are a marketer. You're a salesperson. So funny story, how I met Bellise, right? At Sloan, right? Sloan, that's a startup hub, right? And so part of Bellise's portfolio, she owns a business that does jewelry, right? And I happened to stumble on a what you call exhibition, and I bought a pair of earrings. I bought a pair of earrings from Bellise, and they were amazing, by the way. And I think I look amazing in those earrings. And then later on, I found out Bellise is actually a salesperson who has worked in the B2B space. And I also found out she's a marketer. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, I love talking to marketers. And Bellise, I would like you to introduce yourself.
My name is Bellise Akelo. I own Robella, which is a jewelry brand, which is obviously how we met. But jewelry wasn't like my first passion. I think that I started doing sales from a very, very young age. And then marketing just became the language of communication when it came to meeting my sales targets and my business needs in my work, whether I was working for somebody else or in my own business. So it just became sort of a means to an end, something to get what I wanted out of the various spaces that I was in. So yeah, that is generally I kind of just fell into it. It started naturally. I came from a family of salespeople. My mom is a business owner. That is how I was raised. That is how we got through school, got through life. And I think despite anything and everything that happens in the economy, sales is generally a good skill to have. And I think I've honed it really well. And I'm moving into the marketing space because as I deal with different businesses and so forth, I realized, especially after COVID, a big gap in digital marketing specifically and the need to sort of propel businesses in that direction. And so in 2020, I started my first digital marketing business, went on to work at an agency, and then from agency, I went back to independent. And I'm back at it again, full swing, not really agency level. So more independent contractor marketing, small business consulting. That's what I am focusing on at the moment. And that is how I gave birth to Truth Digital Marketing.
I'll come back to Truth Digital. There's something unique about how you have actually described Truth Digital and the jewelry businesses. Robella, right? I'll come back. There's something very unique about that. But one question, you studied something else different and you ended up in sales and now in marketing. So my question is, when you went on to study tertiary, do you understand, was it because of passion or you just went on to study, then you came back to your passion? What really transpired right there?
To be quite honest, it was just African parents doing what African parents do. Go to school, finish, matriculate, study something awesome. So initially I had applied for medicine. I didn't get in for medicine. I took a gap year or I tried to upgrade my marks because I was like, oh, I really want to be a doctor. And then went from that and then I applied for law. So I got into Wits University for an LLB and for a BSc in urban and regional planning or town planning as it's commonly known. But what that did was obviously things like fees must fall affected my education at that time. It became very difficult to sort of maintain that journey, that part of my life. And what I then took my urban design degree was my design skills. That's sort of, I took something I needed out of that, but No, I absolutely had no idea and no interest. And I guess now that I'm older and time has passed, I look back at it and realize maybe what I needed was a skill and the understanding of that environment, that network, because I made very good friends, business partners in those spaces. But in my heart, I'd say that education was always secondary to my first passion, which was business. So yeah, that's kind of how I moved through those two things.
Interesting. And how do you define the difference between sales and marketing?
Sales is more transactional. Marketing is more position. It is perception. It is communication. I think sales comes as a result of good and effective marketing. So I'd say that those are two completely different bodies, two completely different functions, but one serves the other.
On Robella and Truth Digital, you call them boutique. I want to understand why boutique and what's your understanding of boutique in terms of Robella and Truth Digital?
I would say for Robella, I don't know, did I use the word boutique on Robella? Maybe I should stop writing all my copy at the same time. I think
You're getting
for
caught up
Robella's,
in this copy.
yeah, I can't separate the two. But to be quite honest, Robella itself, the brand was born in a boutique business, a boutique store. So it's
Okay.
one that I worked in and then eventually came to manage and then eventually came to own and then eventually came to sort of close that business down. But the jewelry started as like a secondary component. It was an experiment in that space to see how it would work. So it was born maybe, I think 2022, 23. It was a completely different business. So it just sort of changed. And I guess that's how that word stuck with regards to the jewelry business. But in terms of what I would consider when I think of Truth Digital and the boutique component is to say that it is very like curated and intentional and service towards niche clients. So generally the way that I work with Truth Digital is that I don't like do like a blanket approach to acquisition, to approaching clients, to the solutions that I offer people. I find that the boutique component allows me to cater to very specific needs within a business or within a brand. And that sort of makes it different in terms of what I offer. And obviously, I'm not agency level. Also think that with the network that I have, I do have the capacity to sort of do work at a certain level. But outside of that, I think it's just about the way that I service and deal and, you know, what I offer clients.
Okay. So that's brand positioning. So you basically positioned your brand as a boutique, basically.
Correct.
Okay. So another question I want to ask in terms of branding, right? When you call Truth Digital a boutique, digital marketing agency, how does one separate a boutique agency and just another agency? And then there's a difference, right? I know in your mind and your brand positioning, you have separated that, and Truth Digital is going for a niche. But let's assume that somebody comes to your website. How do they read or perceive what kind of a digital marketing agent are you? Am I supposed to read the word boutique and understand that you're a boutique agency, or how does it work?
I think it just refers to basically the size of the organization. So I wouldn't call it like agency specifically. I'd say that it just relates to the way that I do business in terms of scale, capacity, and, I don't deal with big clients. I don't deal with big companies. I think that anyone looking at that site would then relate or be able to understand that it is a very small, I'm trying to look at the word exclusive. That's generally what that word would communicate. Yeah. If you are saying like, if they visit my website, what would they be able to understand from that?
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm just curious on how we present ourselves as digital agency or digital marketing owners and what the intended clientele will perceive, when they read about Truth Digital or Symboti Digital. Marketing is quite tricky sometimes, You only realize sometimes why you're not getting clients. It's a tiny little thing. So I'll give you an example, right? When we started Symboti Digital, I remember creating a website and getting excited. That was like 2017, and getting excited that I finally got a website. Do you get it? But then I then realized after some time, like, no, wait, nobody's calling me. I have a phone number and nobody's even filling in the form to say they want my services. Without me advertising, I was benching on, hoping that organic would take the business to another level. But then after some time, I then went on to do the SEO and started ranking higher, which is in Midrand, right? And suddenly I started getting calls. Do you understand? I'm like, okay, so this is where I was going wrong. Yeah, you understand what I mean? So that's why I'm saying marketing is quite tricky, and you need a good understanding of your strategy and how you do it. So if we are to possibly explain who you are, on your LinkedIn, you call yourself a marketing and business development strategist.
I think maybe I just had a thought while you were speaking before we move on to the title in terms of like how marketers present themselves or how they're perceived. I think that, you know, like you've mentioned the website or whatever, the back end. I think what I've learned in that regard, obviously like now marketing becomes a language in terms of you have to know the SEO, the back end to bring the people in. But I think that the work speaks for itself. Maybe to just add on to what you say. So we learn a skill in terms of visibility, but we also learn that once somebody comes onto the site or visits the portfolio, they need to be able to see some sort of evidence of our capability. So that's also something that I took from that. I am in the process of completely revamping my entire brand. So everything right now is, I'm with you. In terms of marketing and business development consulting, when I started, I used to refer to myself as a social media manager because I could do design. So in terms of the title that I've come to sit on now, it's just that before, when I did social media management, I would start doing social media and everybody would have this sort of big dream about if we post nice pictures and we create good content and we have great copy, we're going to get clients, people are going to start to see us, we're going to make a lot of money. There'll be a great return on investment in terms of getting something out of hiring this person to do work for us. But then what I realized is that sometimes businesses don't have a visibility problem. Maybe what they have is an operational problem, a structural problem, a tech problem in their business, or even just a capacity problem. I think like, you know, you speak about my LinkedIn, and what you'll see is that I've worked in very, very different sectors, from legal to retail to optical to I'm also venturing into something new now, completely new entirely. I think with the network that I have, what I'm learning, even looking at my colleagues and my friends that have their own businesses, is that whether you're a nail tech or an optometrist or a laboratory owner or an architect or whatever it is that you do in your profession, sometimes there is a language gap in moving from I have the skill and the expertise into I am able to now execute the work, but who's going to tell my clients this? Who's going to help me find the solution? Who's going to help me package this idea that I have with the skill that I have and sell it to people so that I can make money? And so it became less about social media and helping small businesses understand where they might need to upskill somebody, where they might need a new piece of technology or equipment, where they might need to do a little bit of research, where they might need something else other than the branding component. And so I think that the way that I've been working with small businesses lately is that I take them from maybe your issue is not that you need social media. Maybe you just need to change your business cards or your logo because people can't read it and they can't understand what's going on. And I think that that's where the birth of Truth Digital and Truth and the slogan being less noise. So just take away all the chaos around your business and what it is that you're trying to do and just get to the point. So when I now look at myself, I say like, I don't just do social media marketing or design or whatever it is. Those are things that are beautiful, but what I'm passionate about is small business development. What I'm passionate about is empowering other entrepreneurs to be able to sort of equip them with the things that I've learned across industries. Different industries use different software, different ways of communication. And what that does is that allows me to give a cross or multidisciplinary approach when I'm dealing with clients. So yeah, that's where the title was born.
Interesting. I was going to ask about the tagline, less noise. So our tagline is simply effective marketing.
Yeah.
I think as marketers, we all go through, some brainstorming session where we're trying to be unique and we're trying to sell something. You know what I mean? What's the difference between working in an agency?
For agency work, I'll start by saying that I worked at an agency post-lockdown, so after the hard lockdown. And the need for very structured corporate communication was it was the primary focus of the work in the department that I was in. I think that I did a lot of boring work. And what agency work does is the brief is accepted from the top and lands on your desk. And at that point, you have no opportunity to sort of change things or contribute to creativity. And I think that it's a very stifling experience, in my opinion. If you're not sitting at a higher level, if you're not given creative agency, if you don't have the opportunity to sort of throw in your ideas and your passion, right? Is that it also kind of muffles you as a creative person. So agency for me was overwhelming, 7 to 7. It was work that I came to dread. And you'll see even that when I moved from an agency, I went into legal because that's where my brain was. I was just like, okay, if I'm going to go corporate, I might as well go crazy into it. But what happens then when you start doing work independently is that you start to regain your passion for the business, because people who are open to communicating and seeking professional advice will say, you know better. Like, can you let me know, like, if this works? Can you let me know what you think? And I think that maybe having that voice and that opportunity to give my creative and professional like advice and contribution to something like that makes me feel more fulfilled than sitting in an agency and churning out briefs every 5 days, work on top of the other, no creative allowance. I don't think that I'd ever go back to that, because then I would be in the wrong space entirely and it wouldn't serve like what I want my IP and my skill and my passion to be used for. So yeah, for me, I'm happy for those that enjoy it. I know that it's quite rewarding. There's a lot of, opportunity to move when you're a bigger team. There's opportunities for awards, for recognition. But I think that I'm not looking for stuff like that. My fulfillment comes in helping other business owners and helping them get their feet off the ground. Agency for me is a big no.
Interesting. So you started your business in just after COVID, right? You have experienced, the rise in AI. Do you have an experience of how AI possibly added value to your processes, to your work, to your business? Something of that nature.
We've seen industries. No, I mean, everybody is cancelled on the internet every 5 days for something, so I'm just saying, but I'm going to be honest. I think AI is a powerhouse if you know how to use it. I think that in terms of the way that it is allowing me to work now, even the progress that I've made, like I traveled and I came back. So when I traveled, I couldn't work, and then there's the opportunity to use AI as a tool, as a business owner, to scale or to revamp or to rebrand or to move my business in a completely different direction in a short period of time. And I think that what people underestimate about AI as a tool is that it is a time saver if you already have the skill and expertise. It is not a replacement. It's not a substitute or an alternative to what we are capable of as people in the industry, as creatives. But I think that it definitely makes the world of a difference for me, who's trying to, offer people lower margins because I don't have overheads, but I'm also going to be doing the work of 4 people. I'm the copywriter, the strategist, the graphic designer, and I'm looking to give you the best of my capability, but also to build a good reputation for myself. For me, AI is a lifesaver, because I sit there and I'm like, okay, it would have taken me 5 days to read a brief from a client, thick stacks of copy from a small corporate company, to revise that and then give you a brochure and give you this and, restructure the way people see your business and find the right words. And I know that people think that it's this big sin, that it is the end of creativity and whatever. And I think for me, it's just allowing people to, I'm going to use the word rest very lightly. Just, save your brain power for the things that matter, for the creative part of the business, which I thought that was very hard. Like even at the agency, we would like take lunch breaks that wouldn't end, because you're sitting there and you're like, I need time to like fool around and, tinkle with my creative capacity so that I can come back to the desk and provide something beautiful. So if I take away the heavy weight of drafting from scratch or doing the research because I know what to feed this machine and it gives me this bit of information and I can get right down to the, the nitty gritty, it is, So for me, I know that obviously it's a big handicap for a lot of people, but we're in an industry and it's survival of the fittest. So for me, if I get left behind, obviously woe is me. But in the same breath, I definitely think that it is a lucrative tool for moving independent businesses forward.
Yeah. So you did law. I've got a question around law and POPIA and marketing. Do you want to touch on that? I just want to know how POPIA has changed the marketing landscape.
I think so. In terms of, I don't think people understand the POPI Act entirely. I think that it gives people a lot of leverage to sort of say like, that's a violation and this is a violation. But I think people forget certain things which legal legally, a lot of creatives, copywriters rely heavily on. People don't read the terms and conditions. They don't read the fine print. So generally, people will give access to certain material, certain pieces of information, whether visual, written, or otherwise. And generally, that's how AI gets to get away with a lot of things. But I think that when we do our research, we find that if you don't cross certain lines, that's not something that would affect you. I don't know how advanced technological law and, protection of IP is in South Africa where AI is concerned. I know that Africa is maybe Southern African region is a bit slow to that conversation. But what I know right now as it stands is that a lot of people are relying heavily on the fine print. Is that if you log onto a website and you accept cookies, those cookies could be collecting a lot of information within your cache, within your data, within your browser, whatever it is, whatever software you've given people permission to. A lot of creatives are relying on that and getting away with that in terms of the use of AI and how far it can go. So I would say that it definitely has its downsides, but I would say that as business owners, let us not pretend that we don't know that we skate on thin ice every day. Like, I'll put it out there. We know what things that we can stretch and what allowances we have to get away with certain things. And unfortunately, AI is one of the tools that makes that acquisition or the use of certain things much easier. But it's hard who would we even, if I were a consumer now using a business that has violated a POPIA Act in terms of the use of AI, if it was my face or my image or my likeness, who would we approach? Certain things like that. So at the moment, we are at an industry advantage that obviously is not beneficial to the general public or to our consumers. But as it stands, until those things are changed, businesses need to, we have to bite every gap that we get. We can't afford to get left behind.
Interesting. And how do we comply as marketing agencies?
There's compliance, there's allowance, and then there is the bottom line. So I think if we, on a basic codes of ethics, I think that is where we start with everything. I don't think that we should be recreating or regenerating images of people or things or artworks that are obviously originally created. I think the crime of AI is that we don't know whose photos they are regenerating in their thing. And I think part of that actually, I built Robella's online business as a test model for the use of AI in e-commerce. So even as you look at the store, I change it a bit every day, but it's a big part of me testing that tool and how far it can go. I think that as marketers, we shouldn't compromise our clients. But I think that as somebody who understands obviously safeguarding a business, we put it in the fine print. We say like, hey, if you don't provide like raw images or hire a photographer, put that in your budget. Unfortunately, stock images and AI generated images are out of our control and we are not then liable for things like that. So I think it's communicating, but not to sort of push the blame or to take away from the responsibility of that. But like I said, basic ethics guards us to just communicate that with our clients.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I mean, it's very rare to get a marketer who understands law, who understands sales. Yeah, you are one in many things that you do. So I call myself a chief marketing technologist because I understand technology and marketing. I don't know what you're going to call yourself. Lawyer, marketer, sales? I don't know.
I don't know if I'm that committed to that bug, but like I would say that it has made running my business a lot easier. My service agreements and my contracts are airtight. So I'll say that it has like those first 2 years life-changing. So yeah, it has made.
And then if you think about, definitely, and if you think about the small business that you want to assist, even if they have their website and everything, they need to comply with the POPIA Act. And you understanding law and marketing really can leverage, or assist small business in many different ways than just a marketer who is trying to also understand, the act
I do
itself.
all the learning and the hard work, and my network is like my golden key into assisting people in different industries. So, for example, if a client is like, we need to do this, I'm like, I know an interior designer, I know an advocate, I know this, I know that. And I think it's definitely changed the way that I view business. Like, there is no limit to what we can do. But I obviously understand not everybody in every industry has the capacity or the time to, be skilled and versed in all those things. And I think that that's why it's important for me to keep moving across industries so that I can, help my clients to be like, oh, I saw this at another company that I think, would be really beneficial to you. that maybe you guys can try and use so that you can, move one step in the right direction.
Definitely. Bellise, thank you for coming to TechMark Pod. But before we go, how do people that are listening to this podcast will be able to get in touch with you? Without sharing your number, of course, but how do they get hold of you? Yeah.
But my little page is up now, truthdigital.co.za. I think by the end of that is going to point to my very beautiful new website. They can reach me on LinkedIn. It's Bellise Akelo. And outside of that, obviously, then everything will be available on my website, including my contact, because generally that's how clients get a hold of me.
Great. No, thank you very much. Thank you for coming through to TechMark Pod. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me, Alvin. And also you've given me a lot to think about in terms of just how we're operating as marketers and as people in the space. I really do hope to see both of our platforms and our spaces and our businesses grow. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you everyone for watching TechMark Pod. We'll see you in the next episode.